And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And for Saturday morning, first day of the weekend here, looking at a lot of IFR here out over the western Bering Sea and down to Adak westward. And then better conditions as you head east here with marginal VFR, St. Lawrence Island down to St. George. And some VFR for the eastern Aleutians, a little bit lower conditions there in the Alaska Peninsula, but good VFR here along the southwest coast, including Nunivak Island into Bristol Bay down to Kodiak Island, northward, right on up the Yukon River Valley to the flats there, but just to the south of the river, some IFR, and then marginal VFR starting the day out there over the Tanana Valley into the Alaska Range, down to the Susitna Valley, back to a band of IFR, eastern or northern Kenai Peninsula along the North Gulf Coast and the southeast coast, kind of a mix there. Some areas VFR, especially down to the south, while other areas are IFR, and areas of marginal VFR and IFR up to the north there, but gradually improving there over the Brooks Range. You'll see in the afternoon, marginal VFR starting to give way to VFR there, especially for the north slope out to the coastline. And pretty good VFR here southward into Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island again. Some VFR now over the east side of the state down into the Madanuska Valley for the afternoon. And most of the Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet. Still some lower conditions here up along the North Gulf Coast. And IFR out over the western Bering Sea to about Adak westward. And the southeast coast looking good, becoming VFR most areas in the afternoon. And for the Sunday morning time, stays mostly VFR here for the southeast coast into the Gulf. And lower conditions, again, coming back into the picture here with IFR for the western Alaska Range, a little bit of that along the North Gulf Coast. Otherwise, marginal, mainly over the mountainous terrain. And good VFR over the west side of the state, but up to the north here from the Brooks Range out, some areas of IFR. And over the western Brooks Range, the Long Mountain areas, there's some IFR. Marginal, Seward Peninsula down in across the central and eastern Bering Sea, southwest coast staying really nice. And IFR again out over the western Bering Sea from Adak westward. And for Sunday afternoon, that IFR zone edges eastward, possibly to Atka Island. Otherwise, not much change in that area out there with marginal VFR still over the Pribilofs to St. Lawrence Island, the Seward Peninsula. Staying VFR here for the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula. Mostly VFR for the afternoon in the interior. And some IFR there right along or just off the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Good VFR, Prince William Sound down across the Panhandle. Marginal VFR here, slipping up into the Gulf of Alaska, beginning to affect Kodiak Island a little bit. Passes or for the Brooks Range tomorrow, Anatuvik, Adigan, marginal VFR. Both those passes possibly could become VFR in the afternoon. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, rainy IFR. And for Windy, back to marginal. And Isabel looking rather marginal right now. And Mentassa, though, optimistically VFR there. Tanita starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Portage, marginal VFR at times throughout the day. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here, cooler air, chilly air down to 2,000 feet on the freezing levels here, right down to the Yukon River and the delta there, 4,000 feet down to Kodiak Island here, Bristol Bay area. And 6,000 to 8,000 feet over the southeast coast. We have the surface here all the way down into the western Alaska Range and the Kuskokwim Valley there for it's about as far south as it's been for quite some time now, probably staying west of Cook Inlet, though it'll be with a 4,000 feet, more likely there, at least the free air freezing level at 4,000 feet here for Cook Inlet on northward there, and freezing level out to the west about 4,000 to 6,000 feet. And for icing, about the only really significant area will be here with that upper level low that's slowly pulling back to the north. Considerable moderate mixed icing here possible along the coastline there. Otherwise, just a slight chance of some isolated moderate here over the east side of the state down into the North Gulf Coast. And looking at the jet stream, we got general trough axis out here with several low centers in the eastern Bering Sea, so south to north flow, but not very strong at all. The main jet max here right across the Panhandle, southerlies 95 knots there. And out to the west, north-northwesterlies up to 95 knots across the western Aleutians. 9,000 feet, lighter winds still out of the north here, about 30 knots for the central Aleutians western bearing. And then this low pulling northward here, got some winds blowing around that center, 25 to 30 knots. South, 20 to 25 knots here across southern Alaska. Not too widespread though, light for the Panhandle and in the Gulf. And 3,000 feet, not much in the way of any significant winds, maybe a narrow band of possible 25-knot winds there for the North Gulf Coast, and maybe some 20-knot southwest winds for the central Arctic coast, and 30-knot northerlies there for the central Aleutians. And from there, with those light wind conditions, no significant turbulence in the forecast around the state for tomorrow.